Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert. Welcome to sunny Winnipeg, Canada, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I don't even know what day of the week it is. Anyway, if you are somebody who is a follower by nature, if that's who you are, you can have a highly successful career as an employee, working for an employer. And that's fine. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Absolutely normal. Many people find success that way, and that's cool. If, however, you are a leader, and that's just your natural personality, you can have a successful career as an employee. You may not like it as much, but it's a thing. And you have another alternative before you, and that is to go your own way. This is something that I highly encourage, and I highly encourage not only for people who want to have their own business someday and make their money themselves, without having to have a boss or an employer that tells them what to do. But I also recommend this to employees because entrepreneurs, in my experience, have made the best employees. It's a great thing. If that's who you are, you have a wonderful world in front of you. And that is the world of, for want of a better word, entrepreneurship. Being able to generate money yourself without needing to go through an intermediary like an employer to turn your value into cash. The problem with that, of course, is that they take a cut. They take a pretty big cut, and I know what I'm talking about here. Today we're going to talk about more to do with entrepreneurship. This is episode 22 of Side Hustle Ideas, because side hustles are a wonderful way into this world. It's a sort of a halfway house. It allows you to have a day job and have a conventional career, get some security, something familiar, but also to kind of stick your toe in the water and do entrepreneurship, something on the side. If you could bring in $500 a month, $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month with a side show, a side hustle, that suits a lot of people very well. And if that's your motivation for getting into it, great, you know? Some people are in it for the very nature of doing it. Other people are in it purely for the money, but regardless of why you're there, it's great. That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, this is kind of a Q&A. So while we wait for the questions to roll in, I'm going to do some shameless self-promotion. Join my channel. You can do it. We can do about 10,000 things here. You could join my channel. Alternatively, this is the latest video on my channel. Oh, the indignity. I don't know if you've seen it yet. Yes, I finally took another step away from being a dignified business executive. Because if you know anything about me, you know that I'm never being a CEO ever again. Once was enough, and I will never go back. Life is too short. And that's one of the reasons I was okay with getting on YouTube in the beginning. But now it seems I've gone full YouTube, and I'm even resorting to wearing very expensive jokes glasses. Anyway, so check that out if you haven't seen it. And while we're also waiting for people, I will do one more shameless plug, and that is this. If you are interested in learning business, business is the key towards learning how to make money. Check out that course. There's a link in the description. You learn everything you would in a traditional MBA program that you would get in a brick and mortar university. The only catch is that this is self-study. You get the textbooks, and I'm your guide. I provide many videos. I guide you through the entire thing. And the great thing is that you can go as deep as you want. If you just want a superficial skimming of the understanding, that's great. If you want to go in depth, you can. Okay, no more coffee table books, no more cheap version of learning the material. You get it right from the source. And it's a great resource. It is a good solution for a lot of people. I created this with entrepreneurs in mind. So check that out if you are interested in learning business on your own terms, on your own schedule. Yes, so the title of today's episode is something, what was it exactly? It was how to overcome specific business problems. And the answer, of course, is try it. Now, a big part of when, if anybody has explored the world of entrepreneurship, okay, not a side hustle, but a full-on entrepreneur where you go and you found a startup company or a small business, okay? There's sort of two routes you can go. Startups are more innovative, usually more modern approach. Small businesses are more traditional, more tried and true. You can get a lot more information on them. But they're not as innovative, and your career track is pretty, or your growth track is pretty well set because you're doing something traditional. I'm going to adjust the volume of my camera here, or the brightness, I should say, of my camera, because being at one with the latest technology, like I am, I have to manually adjust the brightness. That's the level of sophistication I'm dealing with here. Hey, what do you want? I'm an old guy, so I'm doing good just being on here, doing well. Okay, here we go. So, yeah. Yeah, and hello to Germaine. Is it Germani? Sounds like a Harry Potter thing. Germani. Germani Hall says, love the channel and advice. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Germani. It is awesome that you are here. And if you have any questions, I would be only too happy to help you out if I can. Yes. So, okay. If you have gone the traditional entrepreneurship route, or you've learned a little bit about entrepreneurship, what do entrepreneurs talk about? There's a lot of traditional things that they talk about. Now the sun is getting brighter. My camera is getting saturated. You know what? That's cool. I'm going to ride the brightness today. Like it's 1995. I'm going to do that again. Here we go. Perfect. Right. What do they talk about? They talk about things like validation, validating an idea. And then they talk about business plans. You've got to write a business plan. In my opinion, the way these concepts are usually talked about, they're very outdated. Okay. First of all, the problem with the business plan is that if you're doing this for the first time, you will not know all 127 steps to get to success in order and in great detail because you haven't tried it yet. You haven't started. So never has there ever been a case certainly in my life and my experience where the plan and the execution are so completely at odds. You may plan to do one thing, but when you start, you realize that things work quite a bit different than what you thought they did, and you have to swing with it. You have to change, and you have to, go in a sort of, it's not a straight line from A to B. It's sort of a weird meandering path that kind of does loops and goes down blind alleys and comes back, and then on its way to point B. Okay, and this is why business plans are, in my opinion, it sounds silly to say this, but they're kind of a dumb idea. Instead of sitting there and writing a big, thick document with supposedly all the answers in, jump in and start, okay? And the key to doing this is having a few things in your approach, like not spending a ton of money to do what you're going to do, okay? The idea that you're going to spend a ton of money to do it and you only have one crack at it, that doesn't work because 99% of the time, things don't work out the way you envision them. So, yeah, so writing business plans, in my opinion, is a waste of time. Now, people do it. I've mediated in pitch competitions for startup ideas in universities and things like this. I know that if you're trying to apply to a lender of some kind, you want to borrow money, take out a loan to be able to do your business idea, then you submit a business plan, right, and give it to the equivalent of a bank manager of some kind. People use them for that, but largely they're useless. And as most people who have been involved in that will tell you, it doesn't work out the way that it said it was going to in the plan. So validation is something you have to do. How do you know something's going to work? This is what the name of the game is. Okay. And there's no better way to validate something than to try it. That's the idea. You will never, ever be able to validate something really unless you actually try it. For example, if you want to know if something will sell, you could go to a bunch of people and give them a questionnaire, conduct a public opinion poll, and say, would you buy this if the price was this and it had these features? Okay? Seems logical enough. A lot of people will give an opinion. Sure, I'd buy it, or no, I wouldn't. Right? Not for that price. The problem is that a lot of times, a lot of that data is invalid. That's the problem. It's no good asking people what they would do if they were going to do it. The only way to know for sure is to get the product or service, offer it for sale, and then see if it sells. That's the only way to validate it properly. Okay? That's the name of the game. Okay, so that brings us to the theme of today's episode, which is how to overcome specific business problems. You don't know what to do. I could do option A. I could do option B. Try it. Okay. Now, the counter argument for this usually is that, well, it's not really practical to try it. The whole point of trying to figure out what you're going to do before you do it is because doing it is time consuming, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of cash, possibly, to do something. You can't just go out and do everything you're thinking of, right? Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. And here we come to the crux of the whole problem. If you are trying to figure out if something will sell, for example, okay, let's say I can do this product. I can create this product and I could offer it for sale. But I don't know if that's going to work or not. I don't know if enough people are going to buy it to justify doing it. Okay, now what I'm saying here is try it and see. However, let's say it's expensive and impractical to just try it. I'd like to have some assurances that what I'm going to do will pay off. Well, here's what you do. Try and figure out specifically what the area of uncertainty is. For example, in the case I just mentioned, you could create a product and offer it for sale. Now, what is the challenge there? On the one hand, some people don't know if they can create the product. Okay, so that's the area of uncertainty. On the other hand, creating the product, that's not really the area of uncertainty. You're pretty confident you can do it. Okay, you've done a lot of similar things before. The big area of uncertainty is, can you sell it in sufficient volumes to make the whole thing work? Okay, it's the sales part that's the area of uncertainty. Okay, so if you're wondering, should you do this? See if you can break the task down into its constituent elements and identify the element of uncertainty. So if it was the sales question, okay, can I convince people to buy my product? Okay, let's see if we can validate that by doing it. That's what I'm talking about when I say how to overcome specific business problems. Try it, okay? Maybe it's more complicated than that. Maybe it's not a question of, can I sell it? More specifically, it's like, how do I reach the market, the potential customers? I don't know if I could find those people. I'm sure some people somewhere would be interested in this product that I can build and I can offer for sale. But my issue is that although I believe that if I could get in front of those people, I'd be able to convince them to buy it. They'd be able to see the value in it. My issue is I'm not sure if I could locate those people and get my message to them. That might be the area of uncertainty. Okay, so if that's specifically the area of uncertainty that you're wondering about, see if you can isolate that and test it on its own. Okay, in order to do that, for example, let's say hypothetically that was the situation you were in. Okay, you wouldn't need to create a product to see if you could get in front of and identify the potential customers, the potential market segment. Okay, so you see, we can isolate the actual step, that's the issue, and then we try it, okay? Maybe you conduct a public opinion poll. Maybe you, I don't know, you want to give them a pamphlet. I don't know. Do that to test that step that's the issue for you, okay? And that way, you have some hard experience in what it's going to require, what's going to be necessary, how easy is it? Is it an easy sell? Is it a tough sell? Okay, does this come naturally to you? Are you missing a huge block of knowledge that you need that you were previously unaware of? Okay, isolate that step and test that step, validate that by doing it. Back to the chat. So Jermaine says, if someone was demoted from a position, do you believe there is a chance to later advance within that company, or should the work? Okay, so you're asking about jobs. Okay, sorry, Jermaine, this live stream is about side hustles. However, stick around because in 45 minutes, I have a general Q&A for job interviews and resumes and networking and all that kind of stuff, careers in general. This is specifically for side hustles. Yeah, so that would be That would be what I would say. Okay, that's the sort of lesson. And I've helped a lot of entrepreneurs with this specifically. Yes. This is the thing. This is the thing about, your options in life for making money. The number one default option for most people is to go out and get a job. And that's fine. You're working as an employee. And you're going through an intermediary. And this works for a lot of people. It's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. It can pay off. However, there's usually a cap. There's a ceiling to what you can achieve with that. Okay, you don't get complete control of your life. You don't get complete control of what you do. In fact, you have very little control over what you do. The only real power you have is in your power to refuse, to say, no, this job is no longer worth it. I'm not going to take it, or I'm going to leave this job that I originally have. That's your only real power. You can't really control what you do when you're an employee. The only control you have is to just sort of opt out, right? And say, nope, this doesn't work for me anymore. I'm going to get a new job. I'm going to leave. Or I'm not going to take the job in the first place if it's not something I'm willing to do, or I don't like the conditions. That's the only power you have. You have other options in life too. This is another one. Entrepreneurship is the second one. You create your own job. You learn how to make money on your own. You learn how to convert your value into cash. This is an incredibly useful skill. And as I said at the very beginning of this episode, it's not just useful if you want to be an entrepreneur. This is also a tremendously valuable experience if you want to be a good employee. Because something I've seen many times is that within business, employees don't understand business. They don't understand what's really important. And consequently, this is why a lot of management decisions don't make sense to them. Okay, not that a lot of managers really understand it through and through themselves. They understand more of it. They see more of the picture, but they don't fully understand it unless they've really been in business themselves. If you've actually been in business yourself, okay, you are responsible for everything. Either you do it all yourself, like in the case of a one-person company, or you have a company that, you manage all the people within it. You have employees that do the various parts of it. Okay? But either way, you will understand much better what's actually important, and consequently, you will understand a lot of management decisions more. Not all of them. A lot of managers make really, really terrible decisions, but I'm talking about the ones that actually make sense. Because you understand business, you understand what's important and what's less important. And because of that, an employee that has had entrepreneurial experience, as far as I'm concerned, will always be a better employee because they will understand what's important and what's not so much. Going over to the chat, Heart of Nixie is here. Welcome to Heart of Nixie. Is volunteer work a good arena for developing some of the skills that you might need for a side hustle or to develop the side hustle itself? Here's the thing about volunteering. It can be a route in to a few different things. Okay. For example, one great thing about volunteering is that if somebody wants to know if you're doing something for the money or you're doing something because you genuinely want to do it, volunteering exposes that. That's why, when you go to job interviews and stuff, recruiters like to see volunteer work because volunteer work will signal what you actually care about. Okay, because you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for other reasons. You're getting compensation, but it's non-monetary compensation. Maybe you get a good feeling. Maybe you do charitable work, and you volunteer and you get something out of it. You get a feeling of purpose. You get a feeling of, like altruism. You're doing somebody a good turn and, or you're getting thanked directly by the people. So it validates you as a human being, all that kind of stuff, right? Or you're doing it to get experience, right? you're making connections, you're meeting people within an industry, something like that. Now, there are a lot of advantages to volunteering. However, there's some drawbacks. And what some of the drawbacks are that you can't volunteer for anything. You can't sort of like a lot of people, they do software development, they do coding, right? You can't volunteer for that in most countries, in most regions around the world, because there are labor laws that say that if you do that type of work, you have to be paid. That's why they have minimum wages and things like that. Companies can't just post like a job says, oh, this is a software development role. You have to be a developer to get this job, but it's a volunteer position. You don't really see that. And when you do, in a lot of countries, it's illegal because you're working for somebody, but they're not paying you. That violates labor laws to do with minimum wage. Okay. So for a start, usually labor laws are written so that you can allow volunteering, but only for very specific things, usually like charitable type work, nonprofit type stuff. But they usually get very specific on what you're allowed to employ volunteers for, okay, and what you're not. So it really limits what you can do with volunteering, okay? So if you just want to get inside of a company, you want to show everybody that, you're a really great person, you're wonderful to work with, that might be a possible useful thing in as much as it's a career track. But other than that, it's of limited value when it comes to your career. Obviously, it's a great thing if you're accomplishing different goals, like, trying to make the world a better place and stuff like that. But what we're talking about today, which is sort of like the career making money side of things, it can be a good thing, but it's limited. It's very constrained by what you can do there. Now, what I would recommend is if that's the angle you're coming at this from, okay, you're less concerned about doing the sort of altruistic kind of thing like that. You're coming at it more from like a career move. I would say do a side hustle. I would say jump in and start with the caveat that don't spend any money to do it. Okay, you don't need to spend money to make money in this day and age. Okay. Traditionally, the way it would work is you would invest and you put money into something to get money out. That's true. Obviously that's valid. But the thing is that if you are willing to remove options, okay, you say like, I don't want to start my own airline. I don't want to start my own software company. I don't want to start my own oil refinery. You eliminate some of the options. You can start for zero. Okay, the obvious example in front of everybody here, you're watching me on YouTube, is a YouTube channel. How much does it cost to start a YouTube channel? Nothing, assuming, of course, you have an internet connection, nothing, right? So you don't have to spend a lot of money to start a side hustle, okay? But I would jump in, okay? I'd learn everything you can about business, but jump in. That's how you learn. That's how you learn new things in life. You jump in before you're ready. Okay, and believe me, I am not the type of person that naturally thinks like that. Okay, I'm a very detail-oriented, introverted, technical type person. So believe me, if anyone is going to want to be prepared before they jump into something, it would be me. But I've learned over the course of my career, my long career in the corporate world and also in the entrepreneurial world, that you jump in before you're ready. That's the best way to learn. As long as you manage your risk. Okay? That's the way to do it, in my opinion. That's what's so great about side hustles, because you can like jump in to the world of entrepreneurship in a very controlled way, at a very sort of small scale, right? It allows you to learn, to pick up a ton of skills, real world skills. And make potentially a lot of money on the side. And the great thing about success, a little bit of success, is that you get hungry for more and then you want to ramp it up. And next thing you know, number one, you've got a more secure income because your income is diversified. It's coming from multiple sources. You've got a day job and you've got a side hustle. Something happens to your day job, you can ramp up the side hustle. If something happens as a side hustle, you can always, focus on your day job. So it's you have that, plus you're just making more money. So it's a great thing. SP says, can you follow up with a recruiter for an update on your... I'm not talking about recruiters. This is about side hustles. That's a different live stream. But stick around because I will be back in half an hour with my regular Q&A live stream. Christopher Burns says, love your channel. I'm a director level Fortune 500 company. Managing up to VPs is incredibly important in my role. Can you speak to the best practices you've learned in managing up to the VP or senior vice president level? Wow. Okay. Well, it depends what... I would say I would start this question with a question. I would say, like, what's your, what point are you starting here? Okay, I have not been a director at a Fortune 500 company. Or a Fortune 50. I've worked for like large multinationals lower down, and I've worked for smaller companies higher up, and I've been the CEO. So it's not quite exactly the same situation. However, what I've learned, first of all, from being a director is really being able to understand people's motivations, be able to motivate them. That's what I think something like 80% of that job really is about. Okay, because you're not really doing the work yourself. You can't do the work yourself. There's too much. That's why you have all these people under you in various departments and organized in a certain way. And so basically, it's all about motivating people. It's all about finding out, what's the best way to get them to do different things. Okay? So you want to get certain behaviors. Like, for example, if there's an issue, if there's bad news, we tried something, it didn't work. Okay? In my experience, and this is not a very rare thing, but in my experience, people don't like to talk about that. People don't like to talk about that with their boss. It's weird because I never had an issue too much doing that myself, but over the course of my career, I've learned that most people aren't like that. Most people, they shy away from telling bad news, giving bad news. And this, of course, is an issue because that's the way you succeed, is by learning what didn't work and what you're going to do about it. Okay? So the other thing is that, the big sort of issue is that there's a lot of political issues and there's a lot of things that can get in the way of people really tackling problems correctly. Maybe there's rivalries. Maybe there's saving, the whole issue of saving face. Maybe somebody doesn't want to work with somebody else. Really, they're two different types of people. They do things differently. And so consequently, they don't want to work together. How can you get those people to want to work together? So it's these kind of high level sort of interpersonal issues that you're going to have to essentially be the mechanic for. You have to figure this stuff out and be able to find solutions to these. That's what that job, at least in my experience, that was a huge part of that job. So learning about that, something that has helped me, and I know that this isn't universal, a lot of people don't agree with this, but a lot of people do, is learning about things like, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, or whatever personality, test system you go in for. But for me, back in my day, it was the Myers-Briggs. Before they added a whole bunch of crap to it, it was actually very good because it was simple, it was straightforward. Is this person an introvert or an extrovert? Something like that. Like that's pretty straightforward. That's not super controversial of a concept. But little things like that. And then when you realize that people sort of click and get along and communicate well with people who are like them, they're a similar personality type, that helps. If people are two different personality types, there can be issues in them working together. So starting off learning about that stuff, and then some basic techniques to get people to work together, understanding that not everyone reacts the same way. For example, a couple of live streams ago, I was talking about team building exercises and how introverts in particular hate this, right? It's terrible. You get a lot of extroverted managers that think that, introverted employees will respond well to a mandatory event where they have to show up and do team building exercises and stupid stuff like that. it's completely inapplicable to those people. That's not how you get through to them. Extroverts love that stuff. So if you're trying to get extroverts to work together, better, sure, why not? But introverts, no, it's the wrong tool for the wrong job. So learning some of those techniques and how to get different types of people to work together, that was a huge part of that job. I've barely scratched the surface, and I've talked for like a while. But yeah, it's just basically learning to, I don't want to say micromanage, but really get to know some of your direct reports and really get to figure out what their motivations are, what their work style is, what their communication style is, and how, if you understand that, that's great. But now you have the job of getting other people, like your other subordinates, to understand that about the person in question. So, it's a lot of that type of stuff. And then trying to sandwich that in between the actual work you have to do, like the more explicit work you have to do, is always the challenge. So I've said this before, I'll say it again. What I did that, I didn't come up with this, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, but what really helped me was having, regular closed door meetings with each of my direct reports on a regular basis, treating them with respect, not deferring them, making it a very good environment for two-way communication. They can tell me about issues. I can tell them about what's going on. We can work out issues, and it's a way for them to speak to me in confidence, and a way for me to communicate down to them. And that's an investment in the people. That's an investment in the good relationships between the direct reports and within each other too. You have to do a lot of praise. That's also a big part of it. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I'd like to do a live stream specifically on that kind of stuff sometime, but whenever I talk about it, most people kind of tune out. That's the problem. So we'll see. You're absolutely welcome, Heart of Nixie, and thank you for the question. SP, tell us your story on how you left your last job for doing side hustles, YouTube full-time. What things do you consider before making this big move? Well, I don't do YouTube full-time. I do it part-time. I do consulting as my main line, and YouTube is something I do kind of for fun on the side. Lately, it's been taking up more and more of my time because I enjoy it, actually. It's actually really kind of a cool thing. It does stroke your ego a little bit. And it's kind of, as I said, it's like anathema to a lot of professionals because you're going and you're putting yourself out there. And a lot of professionals just don't like to do that. They're averse to doing that. That's why you don't see more executives on YouTube. You can be sure that if they would, if they do so much self-promotion and it's the sort of PR side of their job where they have to put a positive face on the company, they have to represent the company well in the best positive light and all this kind of stuff. So you can be sure that if they didn't have a fear of really putting themselves out there more or less uncensored, they would do it because they're definitely in the game of sort of promoting themselves and their business. The problem is that you expose yourself to the public, and that can be a double-edged sword. And because I'm in the unique position where I was a CEO for a couple of years, I ended up really having a hard time with it because there were some issues. There's always a conflict between doing what's best for people and then doing what's best for the bottom line. And the problem with being a CEO is that you're not a business owner. You're running somebody else's business for them. So it's really a job like any other. You have to report to a boss, and in a lot of cases, a group of bosses, which is what I had. And you're serving at their pleasure, and you can't necessarily do things the way you want, but yet you have to represent them and all this kind of stuff. So I just had a hard time with some of the stuff was going on, and that was the sort of culmination of my corporate career. And I left and I became a consultant, and I've never looked back. That was around 10 years ago. And so because I'm in that position, I don't ever intend to go back. I don't have to worry really too much about trying to impress anybody. So that's why I'm on YouTube. I don't know if I gave you exactly what you're looking for, but that's kind of that's kind of all I can do for now. What do you say? What did you consider before making this big move? Well, I considered my sanity and my well-being, mental and physical. That was number one. And you know, I don't know. I want to try and live a longer life, you know, with my family and stuff. And you know, it was taking a toll on me. So that's why I decided to leave, if that's what you're wondering. It is a big move, but it's only a big move if you let it be a big move. You know, the thing about life is change is the only constant. We are constantly changing jobs. We are changing our situation. If you are fortunate enough to be in like the same situation, you've had one job or something for like 10 years, 15 years, that's really a minority of people. Most people, they're not in that type of situation. Things change and you have to change with them. And sometimes it's not easy, but with each sort of jump you make, I have found that it gets a little bit easier, at least on a personal level. When you're young, you think that, you know, you like, for example, you get your first career job and then you leave and get a second one. It's a really big deal because you've never done anything like that before. It always seems like it's the end of the world. But after you've done that like 3 or 4 or 5 times, you realize it's not that big of a deal. You've been around the farm a few times. You know how it works. You start to recognize the different feelings you go through, the different stages of it. You know, so it's not that much of an issue anymore. So after you've moved around quite a bit, moving around more is not really that much of an issue. Did I start consulting privately before leaving? No, I didn't actually. No, I didn't. Because my job was all consuming and I couldn't do anything on the side. But that's about as much as I want to get into my backstory there for today. Anyway, well, just to reiterate, if you see what I'm saying, just to reiterate my basic principle for today, which I didn't really talk about that much, is if you are struggling with in your side hustle or trying to get your side hustle off the ground and you're trying to figure out a solution to a particular problem you're having, the best way is to try stuff. Figure out a way to manage your risk and try it. And if it seems like it's too big of a monolithic kind of task to just go ahead and try and break the task down into its individual steps and identify the source of the uncertainty, okay? And be able to go out and test that, okay? That's something that's a great technique to be able to figure the stuff out, okay? So there you go. There's my wonderful prescient words of wisdom for today. Thank you guys for being here so much. Just to read the last little bit of the chat here from SP. So you had to figure it all out after leaving your job. Yes, but it wasn't that big of a stretch, to be honest. Not many people are willing to do that. Shows a lot of courage. Well, I was fortunate in that I wasn't strapped for cash in the immediate future. I could take a little time off and figure out what I was going to do next. I mean, that's what happens to a lot of people where you go through. I mean, earlier in my career, when I was in my 20s, when you leave a job because there's just too much pressure involved, you know, either your physical health is suffering or your mental health is suffering. Maybe you're being bullied by a tyrannical boss of some kind. And, you know, essentially they succeed in pushing you out. You basically decide like, look, I got to get the hell out of here. You know, it's a turbulent time. And you know, a lot of people go through that. And a lot of people that have sort of reached out to me and commented and stuff on this YouTube channel have talked about their experiences with that type of thing. It's never easy, but the great thing is that it's temporary. So you eventually figure out what you're going to do next. You know, even like 2 or 3 weeks of just being away from that toxic situation, you know, you're feeling a lot better, and then you can think a bit more clearly, and then you can get to work doing the new thing. And it's reinvigorating working towards the new situation because it's very hopeful, right? So, so I experienced that in the situation we're talking about here, but it's the same for a lot of people in their situation whenever they make a jump like that. You know, if you're going through something like that, you're not alone. That's pretty typical, actually. And, you know, it can be very healing to work towards something more promising rather than staying and working towards something that's not working for you, like being in a toxic environment or being just in a bad situation. Well, thank you for saying that, SP. It doesn't really show that much courage. You do it because you must, you know. That's what we all have to do it. So you got to do something. You can't just do nothing. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, and so I tried doing it on my own, and it worked. So yeah, I had to sort of put my money where my mouth is, because for quite a few years there, I was advising startup founders and small business owners on the side, formally, and something I did a long time ago. And I came back to that recently, like 5 years ago. And, you know, it's fun. It's fun. It's very rewarding. Anyway, thank you for joining me here today on this rambling trip to nowhere. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you are thinking of doing a side hustle, I totally encourage you to do it. Manage your risk. Don't spend any money, but jump in and try and do stuff. This will have incredible effects on your career. I'm here every week. I want to keep doing these because I think it's very important. And I'm just sort of experimenting with this now these days to see what the right format is for talking about this stuff. But I will be back shortly in about 15-20 minutes with my regular Q&A live stream, where we talk about jobs, resumes, networking, careers, everything. Everything's on the table. Hopefully you'll join me then. Thanks very much, everyone. Take care.